Bobby.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
I can definitely hear
you. Remember those old school commercials that they do, like riding the donkey around the desert, like a singular commercial? Can you hear me now? Good.
Yeah.
And it was like their thing was they had signal everywhere. So, well, all right, man. I think you're episode 52.
52.
I've got 2 episodes I have not yet finished. Well, one I finished editing and rendered. Mm-hmm. It kind of sucks doing all this yourself.
I can only imagine.
That's working out new logistics on things all the time. Sure. And getting down to where, because like right now I just do the shows at random. But when we get at the new location, I've got kind of some scheduling ideas I'm going to start ironing out with, like we're going to do just a Music Unraveled episode once every month. That's going to be the plan. Like some stuff like that, because I do 5 different shows.
Okay. And so like when you do your Music Unraveled, is that...
we listen to a record or an album. Okay. Like tomorrow we're going to...
So there's not live music or anything like that?
No, but also we'll review concerts. Okay. And then the plan too is like Dylan's going to help me spearhead this, is we're going to get set up to where like I'm moving all my audio equipment. I have a lot of pro audio gear into the new studio, and we'll get set up where like there's a local band, for example. I had one of the guys on my podcast. I know the other 2 guys, they're historians at Tech. And it's like they have this band, they're playing at the old bank. They're called Black Sabbatical. But just like, hey, you guys want to come on? I'll do a podcast with you. We'll talk for 30 minutes or something, and then you guys play one of your songs.
There you go.
You know, and have, so like we're going to just iron that out to where like we'll just do one episode of that with like it'd be like honestly like a tiny desk concert.
It'd be like an Unraveled, unplugged type thing.
Yeah, Music Unraveled is just what I call it. And I've got like it's a different logo, different show. I had Nattel on a while back. He's just like a local musician from... it was Dark from Day One. I think they just call it Day One now, or From Day One.
Indie type music, or
kind of rock, but like maybe progressive rock. I don't know how to best describe it. He plays like a 7-string guitar, like Korn plays a 7-string guitar, and other bands too. Yeah, dude, it's different.
That's
so
crazy.
Like it's like you know how are you familiar with bass guitars? Like a lot of them have 4 strings. Right. I don't have any 5-string basses, but the 5th string is like the biggest woven string or whatever. So that's like how it is on a 7-string. To my knowledge, I could be incorrect.
So it's your deepest note or whatever.
Yeah. I saw an 8-string guitar the other day. It blew my mind. I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. Stringed instruments are fascinating though. So.
Well, so when I went through my first divorce, I bought this nice Tama drum kit, and I thought, man, I just need to refocus, I always had the martial arts, but I thought, well, I want to start drumming or something, so I always thought that was cool.
Yeah, percussion's cool.
It is cool, and man, in order to get good at something, as you know, you have to really dedicate a lot of time to it.
Yeah.
And I just ended up selling it.
Yeah.
It's funny, this guy had gotten in a car wreck and lost his arm, and he ended up buying my kit from me. The drummer from Def Leppard has one arm. It always reminded me of that.
I honestly, here's my thing on that. Like, playing kit style is hard, I think. And I'm not saying other percussive instruments aren't, but I've got bongos, congas, a couple of djembes, and I used to have a cajon. That's like this box you sit on. And you hit it sounds like the snare when you hit up here in the corner, and you hit in the middle and it sounds like the bass drum. And I feel like that's the stuff that we can naturally sort of do. You get to being like, okay, do this with your foot, Bobby.
Yeah.
Do this other thing with your hand, and then add that.
Oh, I know.
Like, I can do this, but when I start trying to add the foot in, dude, it ain't happening. 3 things at once. Like, what is this, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
Oh, man. It's like, well, you got both feet, It's not just one foot.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. That's what always too fascinated me. I remember trying to learn. A guy taught me some things about playing on a kit when I was a kid at church. And it always fascinated me how he was doing 3 things at once, but on his hi-hat, he would set it to where he would use the foot pedal on the hi-hat too, and add like a little layer of complexity with it. And I was just like, you blew my mind, dude, doing like 4 or 5 things at once.
It's pretty neat.
Did you get set up to like listen and play at the same time when you were practicing?
No, I mean, I would play music and play along with the music, but I didn't have anything.
Yeah. Apparently, That's one thing that helps is going with like an in-ear or a real nice studio headphone.
I could see how that would help.
I need to get set up to practice more. I got a looping pedal, and I would say that has been revolutionary because, like, honestly, my opinion, if like you want to get good at drums, well, maybe not on drums, but like this is the case for me in guitar and a guy that I show a lot of stuff to on the side right now, who I work with. It's like you get together with somebody and y'all play together, then you both get better. Is usually, sure. And you get better at playing accompaniment. But that's how I've improved drastically. Is just getting to play. So the looper allows me to be able to. I'll do just 2 or 3 or 4 chords, and I'll do that on one guitar, and I'll set the loop, and then I'll unplug, and I'll get the guitar I want to play lead through, and I'll practice playing my scales and my leads. And that's something I've just been teaching myself as like a 30-plus-year-old adult, is the lead side of the guitar. I played for like 15 years, dude, and I was just always like, oh, it's too hard. I could never do that.
It's true. I always wanted to take guitar lessons. You know, I bought myself a guitar a few years ago thinking I was laid up with my hip replacement, and I thought, well, I got to do something. So I thought,
well, okay. So how did you best learn martial arts? Like when you're getting your karate black belt?
You know, I just got out of the Marines, and I met a guy that I started this new job with, and I made a comment about how I'd whoop his ass or something like that, and he kind of like laughed or whatever, and you know, like I insulted him, but then when he laughed, he kind of insulted me.
Yeah.
So.
I do that to people all the time.
Yeah. And so we kind of talked a little bit. And then he took me to his karate school, you know, and as soon as I walked in, it felt like home. I was like, wow, this is what's been missing my whole life, you know. So I never, you know, they're like, oh, here's, you know, the introductory period or whatever, just show up in sweats or whatever. And I was like, no. I said, I'd like to get a gi. You know, it felt like home.
I felt the same. Dude, I always wanted to train when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Did you? And you just never did it?
I never did it. I was always a fat, you know, shy kid or whatever. So
me too. I was and then I started playing football.
Right.
And that got me in some shape and got me protection alliances, but also like I've been talking to Corey about this, like that whole world of team sports, even team sports, some that are individual, you just get this weird culture in there. The locker room culture and
see, I even felt like an outcast playing football, but at least I got in shape, you know. I went from like 240 pounds in the 8th grade to 170 pounds in high school.
Wow. Yeah, that's
just,
huge,
you know, lifting
man.
weights and you know, just always being in the gym and watching what I eat. And
yeah.
Then I thought, man, join the Marine Corps. And so it really changed my life, you know. And then in the Marines, I met a guy who was a martial artist, and I thought, well, whenever I get out, I'd like to pursue martial arts. And I ran into my buddy Craig Habib, and he took me to the school that he trained at. And you know, luckily,
where was his first school at?
At Fresno, California.
Okay, yeah.
And you know, Way Japan under Robert Halliburton, who passed away in 2008. But it was a great school. And so as I started training and got more experienced and better, I thought, well, how do I know this is a good school? There's so many schools out there, you know. And so I started checking some stuff out and going to other schools. And I thought, you know what? I landed in, you know, it was a very live school. We did a lot of hard sparring, a lot of fighting, you know. I mean,
yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, man, I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, it's been hard on my body over the years. You know, I ended up having this front tooth knocked out.
I had my dad when I was wrestling with him as a kid. What's funny is like I had my tooth knocked out wrestling with my dad as a kid, and nothing like that has happened since I've been doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's awesome. My biggest injury doing jiu-jitsu is probably just joint stuff. You know, nagging elbow, and then I've had like a neck pain from a pinched nerve. You know.
Yeah. But you do so well at your game and your strategy for don't take this wrong, but like your age, man, like you previously were the guy that we could say you were the oldest guy we had. But like when Jack was on the podcast, he was like, that dude's pressure is great. But I will say, like, dude, I've been rereading the Book of Five Rings. Oh, nice. And it's like, that's the thing that takes, like, for me, like, he's like, this is the I hit you once and you die technique. Like, you can't move. Right. Like, that is like, and he's like, Musashi is like, that takes the longest to develop. But it's like, you already have that. But then, too, like, this last time we rolled, I felt like there was a moment when you conceded versus holding on out of like a preservation. And I was doing something like passing your guard with the windshield wiper pass. Yeah. But I was like, I had kind of your hips immobilized and stuff. Mm-hmm. And you kind of moved and let me go by because you're like, oh, well, I'll fight the next battle with him. Of not letting him get side control, but allowing my legs to be able to move more. And dude, that's like the stuff that I notice. Like I'm only fighting on that level right now. I'm like, oh, I don't, you've immobilized my hips. I'm just going to let you move by because I can't do anything.
Right.
And as you move by, I got this other plan.
Catch something else up.
Yeah, but there is a moment I feel like of concession or giving way, is how they talk about it in jiu-jitsu, intercepting, whatever and it's just like, but there's also a time to like stick you into the floor or stick you with a strike, and and there's so many methods to do all that. Yeah.
Like my biggest hang up right now, well, forever, has been I don't have any submission strings, like I try and play the top game, my whole thing is if I can get on top, be on top, stay on top, work that pressure until something, reveals itself that I can, either choke up or submit with some type of arm lock or whatever,
What's your preferred go-to? What do you like to submit with?
Anything from side control, whether it's a step over choke. I really like that one.
I like to step over choke too. Yeah. I was trying to do one from half the other day, and somebody was able to get their knee shield kind of across like a Z guard and break it. But I was just working ankles on that when we rolled. I guess it was Monday.
Yeah. And then, anything that has to do with an Americana or Kimura.
Dude, I know, right? They're so high percentage, I feel like.
They are, but like I feel like it's kind of a crutch, like I need to not do that. So I'm trying not to do that. And
here's just strategy talk, right? Because that's like the Book of Five Rings is all about. He's like, this is not about sword fighting, it's about strategy. But we're going to use sword fighting to talk about strategy, But it's just like that is. You take something like a Kimura, like that's a template for all of jiu-jitsu, right? Like people come up with that Kimura trap system or whatever. But the Kimura being, for people who are watching or listening, my arm is turned going horizontal with the floor and turns 90 at my elbow, and my arm makes an L facing down. Kimura. You just look it up on the internet. But let's say you have somebody in a north-south Kimura. Like Randy would put you in a reverse triangle, and then like he did it to me last night. I didn't tap. I got out. Actually, the bell rang. I didn't get out. But, you take somebody else. Like I remember one time I was rolling with John, and he's pulling up on that north-south Kimura and then jumped onto a leg lock from north-south. And I was like, whoa. And I put up a while back, like from a north-south Kimura, I dismount over to side control, and I do like an arm over. But it's like... That's how I've kind of, since I was probably about as far along as you are right now in my rank, like mid-level blue belt time or however long that was, right? Real similar. I started being like, omoplata is probably the first one I saw, which is like a Kimura with the legs for people. But I was like, man, I don't get a lot of omoplatas. I put people in it because that's what I've been taught to do. But man, I get so much follow-up stuff, and I see so many options from this omoplata.
Yeah, see, that's where I'm not at. Like, I don't have the flow. Like I said, I get on top. When I watch other people roll, it's pretty dynamic, depending on who they are.
Yeah,
and really impressive. And I know I've never watched myself roll, but there's not much to it because I try and slow everything down. And I don't know if it's a product of my age and my ability or just my size, but when people are rolling, I want to stop you from doing what you're doing and slow everything down to my pace.
That is the game, dude.
That's my game. I want to be able to flow. I want to be able to be more dynamic, and I haven't unlocked that yet. So
okay, so like back to what got us down this conversation, like how do you see stand up being the same, right? You having a background in stand up, because that's like reading this Book of Five Rings, for example, he's like, it's like a strike is a strike, whether I have a short blade, a long blade, my fist, or whatever I'm doing. But it's like, what sort of crossover principles have you seen? Like,
as far as crossover principles,
like when you're not hitting, is that like flow in jiu-jitsu, but like you're evading? But I know there's disconnection, but I think about this all the time. I do stand up every day and I do jiu-jitsu every day.
And so So for stand up, there's the sen no sen game and the go no sen game, where one is like overwhelmingly offensive.
Yeah.
Like here we are, we're standing up. I'm going to control the timing and distance, and then when I see just the slightest weakness or I perceive a weakness, I'm going to attack you straight on with everything I have. And so I like that in jiu-jitsu. Like if we're standing up or whatever, I'm going to decide when we're going to the ground, and I'm going to get on top, and I'm going to start really being offensive, looking for something. But man, that's a lot of work on the ground. Standing up, it's so much easier, And then the opposite of that is to wait until you're fighting defensive until they kind of penetrate your defense, and then you flip the switch, and now you're going to be offensive again.
Yeah.
And so right now, I've been kind of doing that because, I had a little nagging injury there with my leg. So I've been starting from the ground a lot. I just started standing again. And so I've been letting people kind of work their way onto me. And then I'm trying to manipulate their hips and their legs to where now they can't get on top of me.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to try and turn things around and get on top of them and pass their legs. And there's people that are really hard to pass.
Yeah.
Josh Root is really hard to pass.
Dude, that guy's good.
He's really
I'm glad
good.
he's coming in because he'll elevate the level of everybody around.
Yeah.
And he does.
And so I'm trying to, he likes to do butterfly guard. And so I've been trying to work on smashing one of those butterflies down with my weight, if I can get if I can get his legs pinched together to one side, I feel like, okay, that's a victory for me. And then I'll start working from there. But I mean, he's so good. He'll get out of it. But
how much do you lead with, so this is something I've noticed in like the kendo, in the Aido that Roland has showed me. How much do you lead with your hips and your stand up? You know what I'm saying? Like Roland's always talking about that. He's like, I'm leading with my hip when I'm going to do this. I'm doing this. And he talks about it from judo a lot too.
Mm-hmm. I lead with my feet, meaning I'm attached to the ground, right? I can't move I can't fly. So, you're always pushing off with your feet. There's basically 3 ways to move in stand-up, It's by shifting, shuffling, and stepping. And those also cover the 3 different distances, shifting being the shortest distance, shuffling being medium distance, and stepping being long distance. And you can do those in any direction you want to do.
Yeah.
So it's all about foot movement and being connected to the ground. And then from there, you're rooted to the ground, and then your hips start the trunk. Mm-hmm. Your hips all the way to your shoulder girdle is the strength of your technique, but it all comes from the ground.
See, I started, like Roland was talking about that with like weapon stuff of just like, he engages his hips all the time, and Tring has talked about it a little bit with something like when you got a lock acquired and stuff. But you came to the Brandon McCatherine seminar, right? Yeah. He talked about that a lot too. Like, let's say like somebody like how you probably might be pinning Josh Root's butterfly or whatever down is like by kind of backing up and then like leading with your hip in a way.
Sure.
But I started doing that so much more. Like getting Hickson was big on that. Really, that's probably the first place I saw it. But like putting your hip bone like on this front here like
that's
that,
interesting. Yeah, on
something, and then just going like that being a point of connection. Like we use like this guy Daniel O'Brien calls your shoulder knuckle. Right
shoulder
here.
Of death.
Yeah, because like think you sometimes you put that on somebody like side mount or something, or you maybe post up on it.
Yeah. And see, I've used that, but I've never really considered the hip as being a point of contact on your opponent. I like that.
Yeah, I like that. Where I like is I get beside somebody. Let's say this is your face, and I go around their body and I pull my hip into them, like how we do the hip throw. And that, man, I use that principles everywhere now.
I like that.
This is a way of strategy.
Yeah.
That's one. But, man, it is, because we could just talk forever. And we could talk forever and we haven't figured it out.
Oh, I know. But all that talking is great, but, it's nothing without putting it to use.
Yeah, indeed. And so here's my thing is like putting it to use everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Of like people put so much lip service into, yes, martial arts just made my life, the skills in my life better. Like, and well, okay. How?
Yeah. How?
Yeah, well, I always had to say exercising. Like I was working out at St. Mary's right before this, and it's like I just tell people now, I'm like, yeah, I'm in the gym and I still have to go do cardio. Like, but just for my wellness.
Sure. Oh yeah.
So there's that, and man, like I was just talking with Kristen Foster yesterday. It's like, how much stuff do you have shipped to your house? Because Cora's doing Walmart pickup right now. Like, dude, I'm like pretty much getting set up to not leave this place or the gym. You know what I'm saying? So, but then having a good routine where you get these, like the gym is like a lot of people's like social hour. It becomes so many things for people, man. It's wild.
Well, back when I was, single and young and training stand up exclusively, it was everything. The dojo was, I was there almost 7 days a week, and like Christmas time, New Year's, I would spend every New Year's Eve at midnight at the dojo just training by myself, hitting the makiwara, making my knuckles bleed, and to me that was, I loved it, and I would jog to work and I would carry a rock in my fist and I would just punch that rock when I'm jogging to work. When I started fighting fire, I freaked a lot of the guys out because I like solitude. So we'd sit down for a break or whatever, and I'd find myself a perch on a rock, and I'd go find a rock, and I'd just pick it up and start punching that rock. And
like inside your closed fist?
You would like a nice smooth river rock. I'd hold it like this, and I'd punch it with my other fist, and I'd switch fists, just.
Do you know who freaks me out when they hit something? I bet your son's the same way, but Dean Plank, dude. One time, the last gym location. Okay, did you come to the 2300 spot when we were in the strip mall?
No. That one, I remember seeing it when I would come to town. I lived in Mountain View at the time. When you guys moved from Force of One, you moved to that strip mall spot. Yes. And I couldn't remember
if
there, you guys were closed.
When that corresponded.
Come on the weekends and stuff.
Because you came in like right after we moved to this spot. Yes. Pretty much. Yeah.
In fact, I tinkered around and helped build like one of the bulletin boards here at Force of 3.
Yeah. Okay, I remember.
So it was me and I met
Jamie Harold, maybe.
Jamie.
Yeah. I remember that day. Yeah. Thank you.
No, I loved it, man.
So like, there's the brick pillars outside.
Yep.
And one time we were standing outside, I was talking to Mr. Dean out in the parking lot, and he puts his hand up on the brick pillar and goes, dum, 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 dum. And I was like, okay,
heck yeah.
I'm going to make it sound that way.
Yeah.
And I was like, dink.
No.
And then I was like, oh.
We had a brick fireplace growing up at my parents' house, and I would just stand there in front of that thing.
That's what Dean has.
Punch that brick fireplace. When I was in Japan, the big power poles, they didn't have wooden ones in the neighborhood I was in, but they had these gigantic, probably 3 or 4 foot in diameter, concrete poles.
Wow.
And I would just stand up there and punch that.
We had concrete poles in the Force of One, and I wrapped one of them with a rope. We like drilled into it and like tied the rope through and pulled it in at the bottom, and then we wrapped it. Yeah, but man, that was tough because it was a concrete pole wrapped in a thin hemp rope. It was wild, but that training, like for my shins, has been very beneficial. I don't notice really any major problems with my hand. The only thing that I notice any issues with that I think is from striking is my wrists. Like I notice it when I hit, and maybe that's not from years of striking. Maybe that's from being like shearing off my tendons in a wrist lock and being like, oh, I know you tapped, but I'm going to keep cranking. I'm trying to teach a class. I'm going to need you to, but but yeah, I notice when I'll hit a lot, my wrist, that's where I feel it.
And it's always that, you got to have the right technique, and hitting something that's stable, like a brick wall, while it sounds devastating, I mean, if you hit really, really hard, it can be devastating. You'll damage your fist and stuff like that eventually. But it teaches you how to use proper form.
Yes.
Now, when you're hitting a person or a heavy bag that's moving around, it's easy to be feeling real loose and feeling really good. And if that bag is just a little bit different than what you perceived it when you hit it, and you could twist and just that little tweak of your wrist, and that hurts.
Have you ever heard the debate on like a hook, like this way or this way? I've heard. I teach both. I've heard both. I've heard it for different reasons here, but like, you want to do here because if they weave, you'll be fine. But if they step back, you can hit your pinky on their skull, you know. And then here it's the same thing. If they weave while you're hitting, you could hit your pinky on your skull.
I punch like that every time.
Yeah, I do that, and then a lot of times if I'll throw an overhand, because I throw a lead overhand because I'm left-handed. Mm-hmm. I will even from an ortho stance I do that, but everybody always hits this part on accident a lot of times. But I haven't really, with my lead hand, I think it's because it's closer. Now, when I fought southpaw and sparred southpaw all the time, I did jack up, throwing a rear overhand from that stance. But I don't know. For me, sometimes, too, it's a range thing. Like when I step back, I will throw it more this way if I'm in a wider base. But
yeah, that thumb injury you're talking about, by the way, it's called gamekeeper's thumb.
Oh, why is it called that?
Because back in the old medieval times, that's how they would ring the geese and the chickens like that, to kill them for slaughter. But so my doctor was telling me this because I had developed that too, and for the longest time, I couldn't touch my
Roland has
pad.
that, man. He's like,
this wouldn't touch, and it's, just a lot of inflammation. And now even this knuckle is totally different than this knuckle, as you can see.
I see that, yeah.
And it's just
one time this tendon right here, the bottom one, disappeared for like when I heard it. It was you remember it was actually what was that guy's name? It was at the karate place, and there's that guy that he had all the tattoos.
Oh yeah. He's the one that killed his mom, right?
No. That was a different guy.
Oh, different.
That was a different guy.
Oh, you're talking about Kendrick, maybe?
No. He's like going to school. I think he'd like been like maybe in jail or something, but he'd like really turned his life around, ended up getting a college degree and doing a lot of stuff. But I cannot for the life of me remember that guy's name.
I can't even picture
He didn't have any teeth. He had like fake false teeth. But yeah, I cannot remember his name, man. But we were sparring one day and he was trying to train for a fight. He wanted to fight, and Caleb had a guy that he potentially was going to fight. I remember the guy that he was potentially going to fight is Jesse Wiegans. But we were sparring and he was on the wall, and I threw an overhand and he like ducked like this, and I hit his head with my thumb, and I was just like, that's what they're talking about. Oh my gosh. I
used to always hit elbows, it seemed like, with my thumb.
Yeah. Like just people. Yeah. Well, okay. So is that, how did you guys spar? Did you do face contact with the fist, or did you do most
light?
Of the point?
It was controlled sparring, and we wore these cotton foam pads. That's all they were. I don't even know why we wore them, because they didn't do anything. It was probably like a 2-inch cotton pad. That's all it was, around elastic.
That's how like a lot of like Thai matches, and like I see like them training in the gym. That's what they wear.
That's all we wore. Cups were optional. Didn't wear any headgear or any foot gear or shin pads or anything like that. And it was on a indoor-outdoor carpet over concrete.
That's how we, the very first Inferno, I was just talking to somebody about that yesterday. I tell a story all the time of one time Caleb knocked somebody out with the head case training for a fight, and we had to like all swoop in and catch him before he hit the floor,
Yeah, I mean, it toughened your feet up. I mean, there's nothing but blood stains all over the floor, and just people going up and down, back and forth on the floor in stances, and it just did turn your feet into a hamburger. But they'd get tough after a while.
Yeah, right, for sure. Mine used to crack open, but they really don't anymore. I don't know why, but I don't know. Like in this too, I used to get mat burn, and I don't anymore.
That's interesting. I still get mat burn on the tops of my feet.
That's where I used to always
depending on what we're doing. But man, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And when I first started,
it was my knees too. When I first started,
I remember when I first started my first couple classes, I was like, "Oh, this is not good," because I was like, I'm gonna have to start taping the top of my feet.
Corey Earls would always wear, which was the guy that got knocked out that we had to catch. He would always wear socks.
Yeah,
always.
Yeah, so I need to be able to grip the ground with my feet. I don't think I would be very good in socks.
Do you have any of those Vibram 5-finger shoes?
Man, I could show you my feet next time we're barefooted. And
it is a 5-finger shoe. You're just like you're wearing one.
Oh, I know, but I mean, they will not fit my feet. My feet are jacked.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, they make some of them that have a way more flexible toe. But yeah, I could see like them not being applicable for everyone, especially because, dude, I see like Danny Dring's toes and feet. I'm just like, Like, dude, they're all fake. They all got their own thing going on, man. There's no uniformity.
Every toe is, different.
Got a story.
Yeah, every toe's got a story.
Yeah, man, that's... What style of karate did...
Shotokan.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I knew that.
Yeah.
What do you think about some of the other styles, like Kyokushinkai? How do you say that? Kyokushin?
Yeah, Kyokushinkai. They're awesome.
Very, very close to... What I've seen, it's very close to full contact.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, it is, I guess, full contact. Yeah.
Bare knuckle fighting, so...
Yeah. Did you ever cross train with any other schools or anything like that? I know that
in
you
Japan,
did.
I did,
yeah,
but not here in town. I mean, there was some dojo storming that went on back in the day, especially from the stories I heard from the 80s. It was real big. So there was a lot of bad blood between the schools in Fresno. And Fresno's a big town,
yeah,
1 million people or whatever. And so there was a lot of martial arts schools, and we were always known as being the top dogs, and pretty proud of that fact,
Yeah, that is. It's that back to that Book of Five Rings. He talks about all these other schools, but he's like, but I'm not going to tell you the names of those schools because who cares? Like, everybody can have their. But I used to be real concerned with like what everybody else is doing, and I've almost had like. Because we went through that, right?
Sure.
We've been like just what you just talked about, been through all that, and now I'm just like, oh man, whatever. I don't really care what everybody else is doing. I'm over here trying to learn sword fighting with this orthopedic surgeon, right? Yeah. I mean, it's just like I'm really only concerned with what we're doing anymore.
And that's healthy, I think.
I think it is too. But I also think that you kind of had to arrive at that.
You do. It comes with time and experience and confidence. Same with me back, exploring other schools. Like, how do I know that we're good? How do I know that I'm in the right place? I mean, I feel like we're tough, but are we? So went and checked out some of the other tough schools in town and realized, okay, yeah, everything that people say is true.
Yeah.
And then when they found out where I trained, they wasn't really welcome there anymore. Just to come even and watch, they didn't like that. So
yeah, isn't that's weird? Like, so for example, like I was kind of indoctrinated to be that way or whatever, and have really just had a total like and I'm real open with people coming, but like we actually had a couple of people come from the other gym in town the other day. The guy hit me up and was like, "Hey, I just want to come in, do you guys open mat? I've been considering like training there, but like my contract's up over here." And I was like, we don't do contracts. But yeah, man, if you want to come in and roll, come in and roll. Nice. I don't care. Like,
has he been in the role?
Yeah. And he brought another guy, and it's just like, we're just nice to him. And I just told him, I was like, man, my only problem with that other business is that the owner of it got on Facebook and talked some trash about me personally, called me a fraud. And I was like, I didn't do anything about it. I didn't do a cease and desist with my attorney or anything, even though that like people around me strongly were suggesting that I do that so it would never happen again. But I was like, man, I was just like, we don't need any of that. Like, it's like I have like too many members here, really.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it, your actions speak louder than words. And it's just in that interaction with what was posted and your reaction to that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
For you and against the other person. So I mean, that's all you need.
It really is, man. I just want to avoid that kind of confrontation.
Well, you're doing a good job. Just, man, if you put out a good product, it speaks for itself.
It does.
You don't need to.
What do you think about like that? Because I've been like super talking to a lot of people about like the whole like we don't cross train these people because they're in the same town. Like, dude, honestly, if that guy was a nice, decent human being that, didn't have problems with me and I didn't have problems, like,
it'd benefit the whole community.
It would, man. And I just, and in there, I guess there is this like a little conflict of interest in terms of business. Like, well, who's going to pay a membership where or whatever? But it's like, honestly, looking at things in those terms is not what made me successful.
Exactly.
Like, Core and I have never been like money groveling. That's the only way I can describe it. I know a lot of people that are money groveling. And at different times we've made certain business decisions and then reversed them because they just weren't in line, and done them for 2-3 years.
Yeah.
But they just weren't in line with our principles. And you realize that you're trying to sell something and nobody's buying it. And the real reason is probably because you don't believe in what you're selling.
Yeah. Or it's too obvious that this is to make money.
Yes. I hate that, man. And I hate the, like, the facade of hey dude, like, I don't know, just like for you and I, for example, we had lunch the other day. You're on my podcast today, you're doing this. I like things like that. I don't like, oh yeah, Bobby's a paying member at the gym and that's it,
right?
You know, and I believe that, like, I can't have everybody on my podcast or whatever.
Sure.
I can't go eat lunch with everybody,
right.
But really, like, honestly, I don't like most of the people that are students in my classes that in the adult programs, I would go do any of that with. So many people like Myrick, Brad, McMillan, you, Hausnick, like Jeff Woods. So many people have, like, but it's that same thing. Gone eat lunch with them, been on the pot, whatever it is.
Right.
But man, it's like some people are like anti that. Like, don't fraternize with your members. They're a source of, and I just, dude, I can't deduce everybody down to a revenue stream.
No, I think you're doing everything the right way. You've got a successful business.
I just want to get better at it. You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, and you are. I wouldn't change a thing.
Well, yeah, it's good to hear that, you know, because like all we really want, and like a lot of things, it's like, I don't know if you noticed the other night at the potluck, but like there were cars parked all the way to Parkway on both sides of the road, and it's just like the move is about like better customer service. You know, like everybody that comes in there is like, when I walk in there, it stresses me out. Like if I walk in there at like 5 o'clock, I'm like, there's so many people here and they all want to talk to me. Like, it's, you know, and I want to talk to them too, but it just like spreading it out more is going to be,
it is. And people need to know their role in the relationship as well. You know, not everyone can be your best friend, you know, and like not everybody can walk in and just
jump into your, boundaries are important, for everybody.
And it's so much easier when people can recognize those on their own and not have to be coached around those things, you know.
Yes.
And that's tough, you know. I've been in a position where, you know, you go drinking with your boss on Friday, and then, you know, you come to work on Monday and people don't respect them because you went drinking with them, you know?
Yeah.
And so you have to be that kind of person that knows how to be a good employee as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
you know?
There's a big, the social balance, like what's a norm, like what's a norm around here versus where you've been all over the world.
Right. And then so if you take someone and give them a little bit of that inside, you know, behind the curtain type picture, are they going to abuse it now? Are they going to think that they're part of this inner circle, that they can do what they want to do? And it's like,
yeah, I mean, we've been quote unquote burned a few times
I hate that. See,
for just being too open with people and allowing them in. It makes you paranoid.
Yeah,
you know, it does when you do a lot for somebody and you don't even necessarily respect anything in return, but you get taken from.
Sure,
you know, like it's a one way, like, oh hey, I know you did this for me, but I'm gonna need more and more and more, or whatever it is. Like,
it's like, who are these people's parents?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, me either, man. Honestly, because it's so weird. Because like I think that too. It's like like my dad was super strict, for example, super strict, and it's like that produced. I'm here like definitively convinced after talking to professionals about it, that produced more problems than good. Not saying that you shouldn't be strict. Again, you got to have boundaries, but it's like in some of those ways, not to get into like childhood traumatic experiences or anything, but it's like, no, that was a negative result. I know you're going for a positive result there, but really overall we got this issue like 25 years later because of that.
Yeah.
You know, so it's weird, but because it's like, that's with everything. It's like, how do you set boundaries? What is good parenting? Like, how many changes have you made from like your boys to your infants?
I'm trying to be present more. That's my biggest thing.
You were jumping out of helicopters before.
Yeah. So like with my two oldest, I was gone. Like, Blake, I missed his first steps because I was out fighting fire somewhere, and just always being tied to that cell phone where you can get a call in the middle of the night, and it's like, you don't know where you're going, but you're going to be gone for at least a couple weeks.
That's crazy.
It's crazy.
Did you just make good money doing that, or?
Made good money and had a lot of friends.
Did you like it?
I loved it.
What did you do? I know is you jumped out of helicopters and stuff.
I was part of a hot shot crew before that, and so with the hot shots, we just travel the country fighting fires.
And are there like right now? There's so many wildfires in California. Like, was it like that? Is that an annual thing?
It's an annual thing. It has gotten worse though with climate change, and we're seeing more extreme weather. More and more severe hurricanes and tornadoes than we had 20 years ago. Same with drought. Same with wildfire.
Do you study that in your job with Game and Fish, or the Forestry Service, rather? Sorry.
No, I don't really study. It's just things that you pick up. Like I've hung out with the fire ecologists and stuff, and just experience. You see it.
Yeah.
But it got to, at first it was really exciting, and then after that it was just a job like anything else. Other people might still see it as exciting, but.
Is that do you think that's what jacked up your hip? You had to have your hip replaced, jumping, like doing the jumps?
Yeah, I had a bad jump one time, bad rappel, and landed right on that left hip.
Oh man, and, like going down sideways, or did your feet hit, or did your actual hip hit?
My actual hip hit. Yeah. So if my feet did hit, it was just didn't even slow the fall, because when you're going from that distance when you're rappelling, you really got to keep checking that brake. But the more you do that, especially because you want to get out of that ship fast as well. Mm-hmm. You're a dope on a rope, But man, it burns the crap out of your hand.
Yeah. And did you ever wear like a fingerless glove or something like that?
Not fingerless.
Or an actual glove?
You have to wear. Yeah, you have to wear gloves.
And it still burned your hands.
If you didn't wear gloves, there'd be no way.
It still burned your hands with the gloves. Oh my gosh, dude.
So
that's wild.
Yeah.
Did you? So like you basically just rappel out into a fire? Well,
you're not into the fire,
but
close enough where we can hike to it. Because what they use these helicopter crews and smoke jumpers for is, remote fires, usually lightning fires, out in the middle of nowhere. And if you can get folks on them before they get big, you can kind of get a hand on them. And so you still have reinforcements coming, but it's going to take them hours and sometimes days to get to them, where we can get to them really quick.
What like fires like that, like wildfires, lightning fires? I mean, I've always heard my whole life, like most fires are man-made, right? Like, or man-caused in some way. Like, but there are things like lightning fires. Like, what do you think the balance of that is?
Oh, I think there's probably more. I think the catastrophic fires are probably more human-caused, just because of where they're intentionally set. But as far as actual fire starts, there's more natural. Mm-hmm. Lightning fires, I think, are more numerous than human-caused fires.
Yeah, that's when you said that. Like, I mean, I've thought about it before, but it's like, oh wow, that's not a lot you can do about that, really.
No, you can't. I mean,
it's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. There's been, the last force I worked on. We had one July where we had over 100 strikes in a night.
Oh my gosh! How long have you been? How long has it been since you did that?
My last season on a helicopter was in 2007.
Okay.
And I was in the Hot Shots from 2003, 4, part of 5, so about 3 seasons there on a Hot Shot crew. And I've been a wildland firefighter, ever since. What
year did you get your hip replaced?
2015.
Okay, yeah.
But, it's been a rough life with, martial arts and...
Yeah, well...
I got one of those... They used to be called a Flex Master. Chuck Norris used to advertise.
Yeah.
And so I'd sit there...
Bill Wallace too, right?
Yeah, in front of the TV, and I'd crank that thing out as far as I could, hit my rock, and watch TV. And I would sit there for an hour.
It's a good life, man.
It was awesome.
Right? Oh, man, that's... But... I mean, how many people, like, I know that probably maybe had something to do with your hip, just like jumping out of the helicopter.
I wrecked a couple of vehicles, wrecked 2 motorcycles.
A lot of people have died, like one of the Allman Brothers, and just a low speed motorcycle crash.
That's why I won't have a bike again. My wife, she used to ride, and she talks about getting a bike again. I'm like, well, if you get one, I'm not going to get one. I'm not going to ride it. I got to be around for my kids.
I don't like taking risks like that, man.
Me either. I've become more risk averse the older I've gotten.
Do you think that is your kids, or what do you think that is?
I think it's my kids. I think it's my age, and I know that things hurt more than they used to. My body takes a lot longer to heal than it used to. Before, it was nothing for me to jump out of the bed of a pickup truck. Now I watch people do that, and I cringe because it hurts my knees and ankles just to watch other people do that. And we're talking about jumping out of a bed that's maybe 3 or 4 foot off the ground.
Isn't it like, some people that are around my age, I talk to them about this, because it's not like I'm like decrepit or anything, but I talk to a lot of people, and I have a lot of students of varying age groups, and I've done martial arts for a long time. But it's like, it is this weird payoff of all the stuff we're talking about. Your skill gets better, but your body goes downhill. And it's just a cruel paradox. It is. It is a paradox. Yeah. It's a weird payoff. It's an exchange of, hey, you're going to have these abilities and these mindsets and these strategies, but this is the cost. Yeah. And maybe, but at the same time, it's like, Dring always says this, and I totally agree. It's like, how many martial artists did you see in the waiting room when you were getting your hip checked out?
None.
Exactly, man. But probably people there being like, man, I got to get my hip replaced too.
Yeah. And they're all a couple decades older than me, but
yeah. It's crazy talking to Roland, he's an orthopedic surgeon, about almost all the time it's somebody falls and breaks a hip. As an old person, they just fall. And I've talked, like, my grandma is, she may be in her 80s, early 80s now. But she, let's see, she was born in probably 45.
Okay.
How old would that be? 45, 50, 5, 15. She's pushing 80, right? But she gets around a lot worse than she used to. She has cataracts, and she falls. And she has not broken anything. But she's the other day, it's like, I fell going down the stairs, and like, there's these stairs that go down into this lower portion of my mom and dad's house, and she will go outside and walk around the concrete path, and then go across the deck and then up the wheelchair ramp, versus going down 3 steps, because it's just. But man, to know that is like the reality of a lot of people.
That's going to be a lot of people's future. That's just reality. I don't know. There's. On the other hand, there's people in their 90s that are still running.
Chuck Norris, for example.
Yeah,
that dude's in great shape, but he's had both his hips replaced, let's be real. So is Bill Wallace.
Yeah, and my other one's going to get replaced before too long. And
has it been bothering you? Subtly?
No, actually, knock on wood, it's been pretty good. But every once in a while, like a few weeks, maybe a month or 2 ago, my other hip started hurting.
Right when the weather started onsetting?
Maybe. I haven't found that correlation yet, but people talk about it, so I imagine there's truth to it.
I notice it, man. I get like a weird, it's almost like a barrier that I break through each winter. But this winter's been super mild, but man, when it gets cold outside, it's weird. I get sort of a seasonal depression and I notice such an increase in my energy and attitude hit about March. But like October through, I don't know what it is, man. Like a lot of people report about it, and it's just like this 6-month swath of the year, I try and do more physically, mentally. Like this year, I'm like supplementing more than ever for my immune system, and just in general, I'm exercising more than ever to just combat it. And I think it's working, but man, it's just weird being cold. It's cold, not getting outside as much. It's been nice the last few days here,
right?
But not getting to do those things, and how it can affect your attitude, the length of the days.
I think it's cyclical, like anything. We all go through it at different periods in our life, and just like winter gives way to summer, your attitude gives way from happiness to gloominess. And
dude, it's so weird to grapple with those things. Like I just the other day, I was like, what causes anger? Like sometimes I just wake up and I'm not happy.
Dude, I'm the same way.
Like this morning, as a matter of fact, I woke up and I was like, I just not in a good mood. And I was like, well, I thought about this thing when I first got up. It was negative, you know, like, did that start me down this path? But it's just like, it's such a weird thing that we all have that in us, and that it is a focused, conscious effort to combat it.
It is. Yeah. In order to combat it, you have to focus on it and be like, why am I feeling like this?
Talking about it like now, I think it's
therapeutic for sure.
Getting it out into the narrative and letting, I think too, more people know that it's like, hey, yeah, a lot of people struggle with that.
Pretty normal, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people like to say like, well, what is normal? And it's like, there are shared things about the human experience.
Oh yeah.
And I think that if we will talk about them more, we can get past them individually at a faster rate, just through awareness, you know?
That's true. And, you know, we're more aware now than we've ever been.
We definitely are. It's pretty mind-blowing about how, like, I've been reading this book about the dark web, listening to a book about the dark web rather, but it's mind-blowing about how in some countries information is controlled for the means of keeping you from being aware.
Oh, and it's true.
That blows my mind. So did you ended up in Japan because you were in military?
No, actually it was through school.
Really?
Yep.
Okay.
Through college, I was taking Japanese classes. Well, so my love for all things Japan came from me training in karate, right? So we had customs, you know, we bow. Why do we bow? Why do we say so? Why do we, you know, I know that we're counting in Japanese, you know, and so I just became really fascinated with it. So I started taking Japanese classes at university, and I applied for this program. My instructors thought, hey, you know, write this essay.
What university?
It was through actually Fresno City College, but it was at the university that funded this trip was Foothill University, which was a feeder school to Stanford. So
wow, dude.
Yeah, so it was pretty cool, you know.
That's like, great. I had no idea you had that pipeline.
Met with this professor who's like fluent in 7 different languages, you know.
I'm jealous about it. Yeah. I should have. As a historian, I've hamstringed myself that I haven't. I mean, I know like 300 Japanese words, but there's no talking to you in Japanese. You know, I'm like,
yeah,
hara,
right.
hiji, you know, like stuff like that.
You know, so yeah. In fact, I love foreign language. I love foreign culture.
Do you speak fluently any other languages, or could you talk with somebody?
Yeah, my Japanese used to be really a lot better than it is now. That was a common misconception that I had, and I think a lot of Americans have. Is that people speak English everywhere? Well, when I got off the plane in Narita, in Japan, everything's in Japanese. I'm like, oh, this is a kick in the balls. I don't know how to get to where I need to go. I was by myself. I got there a couple weeks early, so I could train at our Hombu dojo. And so started asking people questions, and if you don't ask them, they're just going to keep, you know, I mean, it was like ants. You know, everybody's just doing, you know, going about their business.
Their own task.
So if you don't approach the right person and ask them the right way, the right things in the right way, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah.
And so, people don't just speak English everywhere you go.
Did you find a lot of people that could communicate with you, or did you just have to start to learn how to communicate with them?
I really opened up and started, you know, I was kind of shy to use my language skills outside the classroom. And that's to native speakers anyway.
How old were you when you did this?
27.
Wow.
Yes, I wasn't a kid. I was the oldest person, and you know.
Oh man, what a crazy thing! Like, and what'd you do? How long were you there?
4 months.
Okay.
Yeah, and I lived with 3 different host families. You know.
Did you go back and forth after that?
Never did. Always wanted to. Maintained some semblance of keeping in touch for a couple of years. And then after that, I'm just not good at keeping in touch. I've got great friends all over the world and all over back home that I don't talk to. But whenever we do reconnect, it's like we never missed a beat. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and there's so many more ways to reconnect than ever.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Just shoot your Facebook message.
That's true. And unfortunately, I didn't keep that connection going through the Facebook times. Otherwise, I could probably still talk to those people back there.
Did you see a bunch of differences in like the dojo you were training at in Japan versus?
No, I didn't.
That's awesome.
They thought I was sandbagging because when I went there, I think I was a 1 or 2 tip brown belt, and everybody thought that I was at least a black belt, if not more.
What is your rank now? Do you have like first, second, third degree?
I'm a second dan.
Second dan.
And I let that go when I moved here. I tried opening my own Shotokan school because there wasn't a Shotokan school here in Russellville, and so I opened one when I moved to Mountain View. Didn't get reaffiliated with those guys or anything like that because it was kind of a money grab. You have to be. It's one of those unfortunate things,
It is. It's weird.
So second dan was as far as I've made it in Shotokan, and now this is Jiu-Jitsu is so much more live and so much more real. Because even after I've left, Shotokan has gotten, or the school that I went to has kind of gotten watered down. There were a lot more protective gear and a lot more controlled sparring. I mean, in a lot of ways, I get it. People need to make money, and you can't be making money if you're getting sued because people are getting hurt in your school. But when I came up, getting hurt was just par for the course. It was natural. You expected it.
Yeah. I mean, like really, my first 10 years of like sparring, contact and stuff was rough in that regard. Yeah. It was just no real regard for safety.
No.
I mean, and really any revisions I've made have just been through research, or I would say we spar less, but we do, like in striking, we do more drilling like we do in jiu-jitsu, like say sparring type drills, like jab, I parry your jab,
sure,
jab cross, you're parrying, blocking my jab cross, versus like and we do mitt work. I just try to do everything, man. And honestly, what we need to do more of in boxing and kickboxing both are, and I see this in traditional martial arts a lot, and Cora is good about doing it with the kids, but just focusing on those single strikes more, like, hey, we're just doing single side kicks today. We'll talk about how setting it up when we start doing sparring strategy here in a little bit. But just taking time each class, and that's something for 2020 I'm gonna, as an instructor, try and do better. Is just like, look, we're gonna have a time, most classes where if it's at the end or whatever, where it's so easy to just get in the habit of like, we're gonna do these combos, or we're gonna do this strategy where we throw a 1-2 and we get interrupted with a 1. We're gonna do this and that. Whereas it's like you don't, and I'm always big on developing the jab, but it's just like sometimes we don't spend enough time developing our round kick, or for what it is,
Sure.
and it's not a jab cross hook round kick all the time. Right. Sometimes I check and then I throw my, and it's not that all the time either. Sometimes I just need to do just the round kick and like, oh man, I'm not doing this correctly, But if you ever want to come show us any kicks, you totally should. We talked about that at McAllister. I told McMillan, I was like, bro, you can get Bobby to show some stuff in the mornings. He totally.
I'll have to just bust out my foot sweeps because I'm not.
We talked about that. Yeah,
I'd rather sweep, but
any of that, man. Honestly, don't let it go to waste. But feel free to share if you want to. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah, for sure.
I want to do more of that. It's like Brent teaches one of the Nogi classes, Wood's teaching the noon class. And man, it is, I think, super positive to get those varying perspectives. And it's like, as I have stopped teaching, I'm about doing this 8 to 12-year-old class. I just want to stay having my hand on the pulse of all the different groups as much as I can.
Well, you've got the right people in the right spots, man. At least I can only speak for Noon Jiu-Jitsu, but man, Woods is tearing it up.
Dude, I was rolling with Shatana yesterday, and she's like, I rolled with her twice recently, and I'm just like, both times, it's like, man, I'm so proud of Jeff Woods making this person good like this, because she really hadn't done a lot of my classes. I mean, and Dylan, like, and they do stuff at home, and it's a family, and she's experienced. They all come, and she helps out with some of the kids' classes, but man, she's good.
That's awesome.
Like Nate and I remember one time we rolled for I did like an hour. We were in the gym, like it was over Christmas at this time of year. And I remember we like drove to the movies. I think this was 2 years ago, and he went to see Star Wars with us then too. And I remarked when we left, because it was just like one of the greatest times rolling. I was like, dude, imagine some people are never going to move their bodies that way.
Yeah.
Like they'll never experience like what we just did. and how like artistic and beautiful it was, and expressive and creative. Because we were just in there, just exchanging, moving, rolling, no time. And I was like, but then I also thought that with Shatana yesterday, because I always think back to that remark, and I'm just like, yeah, Shatana, like she never would have.
Man, that's cool.
She never would have moved in that way. Yeah. Is her body never would have known. And I think there's value in that, like the physical expression of being able to move in ways that are unique to the arts that we train, any of them we talked about. So
a lot of people will never experience that, like you said. It's a shame.
It is. There's a tragedy.
And all the people that I work with, I'm like, and they ask questions, but every time I invite people, it's like, I don't know.
So many people are so, I don't know if it's it's many things, misconceptions, fear, confidence, self-worth issues. I mean, so many things of failing in front of a crowd, being the dumbest person in the room. I mean, it is very psychological.
I'm all of those things,
Yeah, me too. Dude, I just do it scared. Like I remember
scared
for Colby.
Get a shirt that says that.
Yeah. But for Colby, man, I was just like, dude, yeah, I remember when he got like his first 2 tips on his belt or something. I think I was just like, yeah, this is great, man, but there's a big step. But the biggest step is when you came to class.
Yeah,
when you came to the gym. Yeah. And he, like, so for example, like I own the gym, and for him coming in, like he didn't really do anything in society, like didn't go gym membership, anything like that. So when he started coming in, it was like, first he did privates with me, and that's how I got him hooked. Then he would come to classes and I would drill with him. That was saying I would teach class. Even if I taught class, I would be his drilling partner. Then I started pawning him off on other people. But then one time, Cora and I were out of town on like a Wednesday night or something, or a Thursday night or something. And he went to class when I wasn't there. And then I knew that was like a big, that was a big step.
That's the step, yeah.
But, and then it's like, oh, then he got a couple of tips on his belt, and then he got a couple more tips on his belt. But it's like, the growth is not just been in his jiu-jitsu technique, and as soon as he stops squeezing on his submission so hard, I give him a blue belt. If he hears this, I don't know if he will. But,
well, it's true. You take that for granted. I mean, because we walked in the door a long, long time ago and never walked out. Yeah, what brings people through the door? It's hard. It's intimidating.
It is, man.
I mean, looking back now, if I had to do it, yeah, it's rough, dude.
It is. And I think it's rough just because of, like I mentioned earlier, for some people, it's their social hour. And there's so much socializing that goes on in one way or another that, like, man, some people are just like, even people in our adult jiu-jitsu program, they don't want to bullshit small talk with you. And it's very uncomfortable for them. And just like, so like as an instructor, I try and like know who doesn't want to bullshit small talk and who wants to have a real conversation.
Right.
And and if people want to small talk with me, I'm just like, I am a bullshitter, man.
Me too.
I'll bullshit with anybody. Dude, I'll run a podcast. You want to come record us bullshitting? Like,
but it's so strange. Like, I'm also a shy person. I'm very introverted. Yeah, it's hard to figure me out. I haven't figured myself
I know,
out.
dude. Is there even, like, I really don't do things, and I need to get better about being in schedule, but like the coffee place over, I'll go through like in Morrilton on campus, I'll go through like a 6-week period where I hit them up at the same time and I switch it up entirely. And they're like, dude, we cannot figure you out. Like, you didn't even come in last week. And I was like, yeah, I did something different last week. But like, honestly, like my life is chaos like that. I don't want to be in these patterns. But I've had to get in more patterns. Yeah. Just like exercising at St. Mary's or whatever it is, or just being sure I get my exercise, and physical conditioning and rolls, and
put yourself first.
Yeah. Well, dude, let's wrap it up, man. Okay. I really you want to go? Or you got anything going on? You want to go to the gym?
Man, I would love to, but
you got stuff, dude. Enjoy your time off, bro.
I am. I enjoy my time off. But sometimes it's nice to get back to work so I can start training again.
Yeah.
Thankful for my wife and kids more than anything else in the world. But but I just, I don't like taking any time away from them.
Hey, dude, that is like no explanation needed. Like I'm taking the same stance, and like there are people in my life that are resentful that I don't want to come hang out with them in my free time, and I'm just like, no, my free time is going to be spent like doing this. It's like, if you want to hang out, like maybe I could make some time for you to come over and be on the podcast or something. But it's like Cora is the same way, man. It's just like we do socialize a lot at the gym, and I got this podcast, but if I can, it's weird the gratitude I have coming home at night sometimes, especially when it's been cold. I'm just like, man, I've never thought this before, really. But coming into my own house when it's cold outside at night after working like 12 hours, I'm like so grateful that I have a warm house.
Yeah.
Is that a weird? I hear people say stuff like that, but I just for the first time thought that. I was just like, damn, it's super cold outside. I'm super grateful that I have.
You know what you're gonna love even more is coming home to a baby that just looks at you and lights up. Man, it's gonna change your world, dude.
Dude, I know. I will say, like I've talked recently. A couple of friends have had their first kid, and I've talked to them before and after of like trying to get them to convey to me on some level the shift in consciousness that they had.
It's huge.
Yeah. You've been through it, 4 times now?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Right on, bro.
Yeah.
You must like it. So.
I do. I love every aspect of it. I mean, it's not easy, and it's not all rainbows and butterflies every day, but dude, I wouldn't change it.
Well, and that's, man, part of that scheduling and boundaries and logistics and patterns is preparing for that part of life. It's like that's honestly it's just weird. Anytime you have a schedule, like just being off work right now, the first 3 days I was like a mental wreck. I'm like, what do you mean I just don't go to Morrilton? Like, what did I do with my life? I literally, it's weird. It is weird. Like the first 3 days I had to adjust to being out of that. So that tells me patterns are important, and if you change them drastically, and then also it takes, you have to implement it. You have to implement, and like just like I've implemented exercising back into my routine. It took a while. Now it's there. Awesome. I go on the certain days and times. I go whenever those times, and I'm focused, make more conscious effort to roll more. It's so easy to not do that stuff, man.
Yeah.
So, well, bro, thank you so much for taking the time, man. I really appreciate you. And anytime you want to come show some foot sweeps in my kickboxing class,
absolutely.
Think about it if you want to dust out the old notes or whatever, man. Yeah. All right. Well, signing off, Bobby. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate it.